In this third video, we're going to continue looking at how we use the calculator to determine the equation of the least squares regression line. So this is following on from the gradient and intercept. So moving on then in our Unit 4 booklets to page 25. So on page 25 we have the formula for using the least squares regression line. Now for some reason I can see it on my little thumbnail, but I can't see it on the screen in front of me. So there's some bits missing from this slide, and I don't know why that is, but you've got this at the top of page 25, so I'm just going to talk you through it at the moment. So on page 25, you've got this writing, and then you've got some equations where you've got a equals y bar minus bx. So that's how I can find the value of a, the coefficient, the constant. And then you've got a big long complicated formula for b, one where it's got sxy over sxx, and then one with sums of x's and x bars and y's and y bars. Now at no point in the exam will you be asked to use those formulas at all. They're in your formula booklet, so if you want to have a quick look through your yellow booklet, you should be able to find them, but we don't need them. It says on the specification, all you need to be able to do is use the calculator. So that's what we are going to be doing. That's how we are going to find our values of A and B for the least squares regression line. Now again, the next slide, if I click on it, I can see my thumbnail, that my picture of my calculator is there with all my information. However, when I click on this slide to show you, for some reason, it isn't showing up. So again, you're just going to have to make sure you are looking, as I'm talking you through this, at the picture and the instructions on page 25. So you have your Casio ClassWiz calculator. Okay. Now we started to look at bivariate data. We've used the calculator to find the PMCC and also rank the data to find the SRCC. And we're going to use that same setup to be able to find the least squares regression line. So on your calculator, if you press Shift and Setup and make sure that your calculator, if you scroll down, is in statistics mode, which is number 3, so switch on the frequency. And then if you press Menu, option 6, which is statistics, and that you've got the older calculator. And rather than doing one variable, this is bivariate data, so we have two variables, x and y, and we are using option number 2, y equals a plus bx. You should then get on your calculator 3 columns, an x column, a y column, and a frec column, which stands for frequency. And as you input data, that frequency will automatically be 1, and that's fine for these questions. You won't have anything where you need more than one of those. Once you've inputted your data, exactly the same as you did when we were finding the value of R, you press AC, all clear, to clear the screen. You press OPTN for options, and you press number 3, which is regression calculations. Now, if you're doing this while I'm talking to you now, it will come up with math error because you haven't inputted any data. But when you put in your data, you will get a value for A, a value for B, and a value for R. For the least squares regression line, you need those letters, or you need those values for A and B. So let's have a look at a couple of examples which are at the top of page 26. So the first one says, for the data shown in the table below, and again, for some reason this hasn't copied over, I'm not sure why, calculate the equation of the least squares regression line. So make sure you're on page 26 and you've got this table. It should say x and y, and the x row is 26, 28, 35, etc. So I'm going to use my calculator and I'm going to press Menu. I'm going to press option 6. I'm going to press number 2, which is y equals a plus bx. I'm now going to input my x values, so 26, and remember equals to enter the value, 28, 35, 31, 47, 56 and 30. I'm then going to scroll back up and enter my y values: 1.7, 1.8, 2.4, 1.0, 1.9, 2.3 and 1.7. All the frequencies have automatically gone to 1, and I can see I've got 7 pairs of data, so I might just want to check on my table that I've got 7 pairs of data. I then press AC or clear, and it should say on your calculator that you are in statistics y equals a plus bx mode, OPTM for options, and number 3, regression calculations. You should then be presented with the following data on your calculator. So your value for A, 3 significant figures, is 1.05. Your value for B, 3 significant figures, 0.0215. Remember, those first 2 zeros are not significant. A significant figure is anything that is after the first non-zero. And then if I write it, you might also see on your calculator, you've got your R value, your PMCC value. So I've got that as 0.521, but I don't need that for this question. I just need my values for A and B. And then I've written at the bottom here, if I maybe highlight or underline this bit so you can see, the actual equation for the least squares regression line is y equals 1.05 plus 0.0215x. So that is my answer. So the A and B are the values from the calculator, but my answer for the equation is this bit here, y equals 1.05 plus 0.0215x. Can you make sure, and you might want to pause the video, that you've got that written down and that you too get those same answers on your calculator for example A. Moving on then to example B, and unfortunately the same thing's happened again, where my table, which I can see my thumbnail is here, is missing from the screen. I don't know why that's happening. So this one we've got a little bit more context. This one, rather than asking me for the equation, is specifically asking for the gradient and intercept. I'm just going to make sure that I know which is which from the calculator. So example B says the test results of patients HNC levels, whatever they are, before B and after A taking a trial drug are shown in the table below. And in this one, confusingly, B is on the top, so B is my X value and A is my Y value. Now I know that because I can see from the question that I've got my independent and my dependent variables. I've got what happened before is like my control value that I'm comparing it to, and what happens after taking the drug is my response variable, my experimental group. And that is why B is the X value and A is the Y value. I can also see from the table on page 26 that B comes first, it's on the top row, and that's another indicator as to why it is the X value, so just be careful on those questions. So again, I'm going to input the data onto my calculator. I'm going to press menu and option 6, statistics, and number 2, y equals A plus bx. I'm then going to input my X values, which is the B row, so 12.4, 12.9, 12.7, 13.6, 11.5 and 12.5. I'm then going to go back up and input my data for the Y values, which is A, 10.7, 10.4, 10.9, 10.5, 10.9 again, and 10.6. I've got 6 values, so I'm just going to double check on my table that that is correct, and they've all got a frequency of 1. I'm then going to press all clear, AC, OPTN options, and go for number 3, regression calculations. From this question, I can see that my value of A is 13.2, and my value of B is negative 0.203. Now, I've also done here the equation of the line. It hasn't asked me for this. I've done it just to show you what it would look like. Notice how for the value of B, I've made sure it's a negative here by putting minus 0.203x. The reason I've written it like that is because this question specifically asks for the gradient and intercept, and I find it easier if I write it like that. I can see then that my gradient is negative 0.203 and my intercept is 13.2. I just find it personally a bit easier to look at it from that point of view. So can you make sure please that you have written down in that second example, example B. And then I would like you to have a go at exercise 4.3D, which is on page 26 and goes on to page 27 as well. So for most of them, they're asking you for the equation of the least squares regression line, sometimes just the gradient and intercept. And again, once you've done those, if you can go on the PowerPoint, excuse me, and mark your answers just to make sure that you are getting those correct. And that takes us to the end of today's lesson. I need you to make sure that you're 100% confident on calculating those values before we move on to our next lesson on the least squares regression line, which is understanding what the values represent. And I should be doing that lesson with you on Friday in class. So make sure you've got all your stuff up to date. Thank you.